I am Edan Mitchell-Finch. I am a part-time chef, full-time artist, and I hail from Tring in Hertfordshire, and I've lived in Leeds for nearly 8 years. In all honesty, my greatest accomplishment was probably coming to Leeds, because that followed like a term of like really shit events which kicked me up the bum to like go to university. Me and my mates, we had a quite liberal upbringing, and certain substances were abused in the time, but some of us obviously got hit harder. And when we were 18, my best mate, and someone that I've always looked at as like he was my brother, he still is my brother, but killed himself. Without a shadow of a doubt, worst day of my life. People talk about this kind of stuff, but like you never realise, like, you just didn't believe it. I'd lost people in the past, but not like this. This was like, he killed himself. Like, surely we could have helped. Like, someone could have helped. And that's, to be honest, that's fucked. That's still fucking me up now. I think all of us that were tight with Hector have this feeling that we could have potentially helped. To be honest with you, that kicked all of us up the arse, because it made us grow up rapid. There was not a want to move on, there was like a need to move on. And then a few months, or about a month down the line, Mum and Dad went to get a new puppy, and then that morning I found out I got into Leeds College of Art. I hated art in secondary school. It's forced creativity. Like, art is always shrouded by academia. From school to foundation to university, essays will always be a part of art. Every stage of my art education, I wanted to be on the next stage. And then we get to third year, and I was doing my favourite project I've ever done in my life, which was like giraffes. So I was just drawing a neck and a head, and I was watercolouring them and then outlining them in fine liners and dots. I loved it. And then my tutor came over and said to me, he was just like started hounding me about my dissertation. And he basically, like, to cut a long story short, he stopped me drawing my giraffes. He was like, you need to stop doing that, because you need to get on with your writing. And I'm thinking like, fuck man, I'm 22, I'm a third year student, and I'm being forced to write 13,000 words or 10,000 words, whatever it was, when I don't want to. I hated it, absolutely hated it. And in the end, it wasn't me drawing what I wanted to draw. It gets quite boring, like when you enter this world that I wanted to be in. All I ever wanted to be was in this world, having got a degree. I'm a graduate of an art university. At the time, the College of Art, which is sick. I was so proud to be a part of that when I first got there. And then you really start thinking, like, am I only doing this to get paid? This isn't a representation of me. The art I was doing didn't represent me at all, I don't think. So then when suddenly you get to this point that you realise that you don't like doing this, you're lost. You've spent the last however many years doing it, and you think, well, that's what I do, and I don't like it, so I'm going to stop. And so I did. It was the summer, and we always tended to stay in Leeds, because that was like the only time that you're not studying. And we bought a book that was like a BBC book that was like 101 ways to cook chicken. And I did every single one of them. Like we'd go to the market, buy all the gear, and then every day while the boys were at work, I'd make food. We got good at it, and we were doing like stuffed things, pastas, and within all this madness of getting well into cooking, suddenly I just came up with an idea that was like the pivotal thing with me and my cooking. I just remember thinking, like, I wonder what would happen if you made pizza dough and put it in a cake tin, and then bolognese, cheese, maybe like some tomato and some onions, and then repeat until you get to the top. So you've got this like deep thing, and then you bake it and you've got a pizza pie. I was like, yo. It was just for the fact I needed a job, and the easiest place to go was hospitality. And then eventually I found a job going at the Brunswick in Leeds. But now suddenly I'm making things like tartines and being taught how to make fresh pasta and making like black squid ink pasta with a confit egg yolk on top of it. And all this stuff was just like so exciting, awe-inspiring, and like by this point, art was just gone. Like art was completely out of my head. That was not a thought at all. I was just like, this is sick. And still to this day, I say it, like there's no better feeling than when you've been like well and truly shafted in the kitchen to the point of it being like you go into auto drive and you're just cooking food and everyone's enjoying it. And you just get this sense of like pure, utter like adrenaline and joy. And you'd be like so happy. You think like an hour ago I was the most stressed I've ever been in my life. But like suddenly it's just, everything's just gone like woof and falling off and you're just like buzzing. And then this was when it all happened. This lady came in and she was like, so this is really interesting. Like you're a head chef. And then you just it's really cool that you have like a cool hobby doing art. And so you do art part-time and chefing full-time. She was like, I think that's really, really commendable. And I just stood there and my head, it just clicked. That was it. I was like, no. I was like, I'm an artist. I was like, this is my hobby. Chefing's my hobby. Cooking's my hobby. I've just managed to get to be a head chef role just because I love it. But art is this, I didn't want anyone to think that. Probably about a few weeks or a month later, my mate Ben, who's a massive inspiration, pretty much said that you're like wasting your talent, essentially. Like why are you doing this? Like why are you cooking? And when I eventually decided to go part-time and step down from being head chef and do my art, a lot of people were like, oh God, they're like, are you gonna be able to afford to live, or is that not a big risk? But Ben was just like, fuck yeah, man. He was like, this is it. I've been wanting to hear that. And that to me was like, boom, like straight in. I was just like, okay, let's do this. I didn't know where else I could take art. Whereas when I look back, the answer was sat there in plain sight, but I didn't see it then. Buildings was the biggest clue that I'd missed. And then in the last year, I've picked it up again and I love it. We all know what a building looks like. So it's such a natural shape to us, like the four walls and a roof with windows and doors. And you can represent that in any way. I can draw them in a way that like, they're not structurally sound, but it's still a building. It's a caricature of a building, if you like. And I think that's quite interesting. And it's home, isn't it? It's where we all live. I don't know, something about buildings and houses that it fuels me. You just let your imagination run wild with something that you see everywhere. I lose myself, to be honest with you. I completely lose myself. You are escaping this reality and entering this to please yourself, and then in doing that you can show other people, make them happy. Like, it's pretty sick, man. Like, there's not many things better than when someone shows a bit of love for what you do, and especially something that you plow literally your heart and mind into. It just makes me so happy. I'd love to have the time to really put some serious hours into doing like something that's the size of like a wall. If you can draw something so complex and so detailed, and especially if it's the size of a wall and the buildings are still that big, you'll be looking at it for years and you'll still find, I don't know, like funny little like metaphors for things or whatever. That interests me. Having the time and having someone give me the time, I think that's the only way you can do it. Someone give you that opportunity to be like, right, do this. I just followed the path that I fancied doing at the time, and whether that be waiting or cooking or whatever, cooking was what I wanted to do. And I'm now part-time, but I was head chef and managed to make menus and do shit that I'd have never ever thought I'd have done. I was terrified when I wasn't doing art that I was never going to do art again. But like, boom, 4 or 5 years down the line, I'm back on it. I'm back on the train.